What's up, Ninja fans? Jack the Animal Tutoring here. Today's video is a little bit different than usual. Today, I'm going to be giving you some tips and teaching you how to write your own motivational speech. And at the end, I'll be giving you some tips on how to present that speech. I have two really big speeches coming up, which is what inspired today's video. Hopefully, they'll both be out on the channel by now, so check those out first, and now you get to see what went into the making of them. The two speeches that I'm going to be working on today are the Thursday night course run speech that came out right before regionals and my graduation speech that I actually gave during my high school graduation. So we're going to start with how to write your own motivational speech, and I'm going to be using my ninja speech as an example. This is the last Thursday night course run speech that I'm going to be giving before New England regionals, so it has to be the best one that I have given all year. This is a very big competition for the team, but luckily I have a few ideas. Before I get into the specifics of this speech, I did realize that most of my ninja speeches fall under a certain format. So I'm going to break down that format because I think it's going to help you really write your speech. So before I get into the specifics for this speech, I'm going to break it down. There's 5 simple steps that I think all of my speeches kind of follow, so I'm going to go break those down one by one. Step 1, write an intro. Address the audience. For the sake of the ninja speeches, I normally like to start with something like, all right, ninjas. 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 And then I'll start moving into step 2 after talking about some recent events. If there were competitions or anything happening that was cool during chorus night, I like to bring that up. But an important side note, if you're giving a speech and the audience does not know who you are, make sure you introduce yourself. Don't just say your name, but make sure you give a little bit of context about who you are.
Now, I know that some of you might be surprised that I'm actually giving a speech at graduation. It's no secret that I was not the most talkative student in high school. Despite that, I have a message for you today that I want to give.
Step 2, explain a problem. You see this in a lot of my speeches. It's not hard to think of a problem or a challenge you faced. I normally think of something that got me down, and I explain what it is and why it got me down.
I'm gonna be honest, I was not motivated this week, which sucks when you're a motivational speaker, but that's all right. I'm sure everyone can relate. We all have days or weeks where we're just unmotivated, and I felt like doing certain things was hard, that lighting that fire inside of me wasn't possible, and that the ball was not rolling.
The tricky part in this step is finding a good balance. You want to let your audience feel like they're starting to know you on a personal level, but you also don't want to get too personal to the point where it's depressing.
You're probably thinking, thanks, Jack, and now I feel more nervous. Why the hell did you read me that?
Once you explain the problem, you can move on to step 3. What solved the problem? So you've already explained the problem. Now you need to figure out a way to put a positive spin on it. This is the most important part of the speech, the turnaround, where you reveal to your audience that though this challenge is present, there's a positive way to move past it. This part of the speech is the most important to me because when I go through something that is a challenge or it puts me down and I'm sad or stressed, I think, how can I put a positive spin on this for a speech? Once you really think about it, you can always find the bright side in anything, but don't just keep it to yourself. Use your speech to spread that message to the world.
Don't wait 4 years like I did to make my voice heard. The moment we enter the adult world, we can take some risks and try some new opportunities. We can make a lasting experience in the world, and we have the potential to change other people's lives.
Step 4. What do you want your audience to take away? When I was in middle school and I had to write papers, my teachers taught me to P. That sounds wrong. P stands for point, evidence, and explanation. You've made your point with the problem. Step 3 is the evidence. You figure out how to move past it. Now you need your explanation, and that's where step 4 comes in handy. Your explanation is the why you are giving this speech. What is so important to you that you want other people to hear this too? After a speech, a human brain can only take away 2 or 3 things from all the information that was presented. What do you want your audience to take away? What are those 2 or 3 things? You want to sum them up in this part of your speech. And on to our final step. Step 5 is the outro. You make your final stand. You leave it all out there. That's normally where I like to drop a big quote like, "That's who we are, and that's what we do." Or, "Together we will overcome all obstacles."
And you know what I'm gonna say next? Go overcome some obstacles.
Find what works for you, find what works for your audience, and find what works for your speech. This is the part where you want to bring the most energy. Save something for the end. This is the part where I start to raise my voice, where I start to crescendo up to the big release. This is the part where you want to leave your audience with their jaws dropped. The applause you receive at the end is the best part of giving a speech. You want it to be long and you want it to be powerful. The last thing you can do for your speech is find something that sets it apart. If you've already seen my regional speech, you would know that I used an old journal, took some thoughts out of it, and then threw it.
I want you to do what I did. Write them down. And once you have them, do this.
Throwing the book was not just for my enjoyment, although I did enjoy it. But when people think back on this speech, that's what they're going to remember. And throwing the book ties into my speech's message of throwing away negative thoughts. So when people think back to that crazy action that sets this speech aside, they're going to remember the message that I want them to remember. Now it's your turn. Those are my tips on how to write a motivational speech. But on to the important stuff, how to present it. Public speaking is terrifying. I often have the advantage of having my supportive ninja friends as my audience, and that makes my life a lot easier. But not all speeches are for your friends. For example, I just gave a graduation speech in front of my whole class and all of their parents and families, and I was feeling nervous for that one. There is this one saying, just pretend that the audience is in their underwear. I don't know what world you're living in, but if I was giving a speech to a bunch of people in their underwear, I would feel 10 times as nervous. What I think is extremely helpful is I pretend that I'm kind of like a celebrity, and that everyone in my audience is a fan. I pretend that they are really excited to see me, and that they really want or even need to hear what I have to say. If you believe that there's one person in your audience that could benefit from what you have to say, focus on that. And when speaking, there's also 5 key points that I've come up with as well. Point number 1, there is a difference between talking and speaking. Develop a speech voice. Sometimes you really have to overdo it. Anyone can hear you talk, but if you've got a microphone, they want to hear you speak. Point number 2, pace yourself. This is the one that I struggle with the most. Sometimes I get nervous or I go too fast. I'm sure you've heard me stutter a few times during my speeches. But if I slow down and enunciate every word, it starts to cause me to relax since I know I'm saying everything right. Point number 3, practice, practice, practice. I practiced every night for over a week before I gave my graduation speech. All right, seniors, congratulations, because we made it. We're graduating. This day has been 13 years in the making, and it's truly incredible and honestly quite surreal that today is finally here. Point number 4, engage with your audience. Obviously, your priority lies in reading your notes that you have prepared, but don't close yourself out. Find points in your speech where you can make eye contact with the audience. Make gestures, wave your arms, get them excited. The more free you feel, the more fun your audience will have while watching your speech. Point number 5. This is the most recent thing that I have learned. Focus on your message. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, focusing on the stage or the sound of your voice or the eyes that are watching you, and sometimes it's really hard to figure out what you should be focusing on. I found that my best speeches happen when I'm focused on what message I'm trying to convey. I'm not just reading words on a screen, I'm delivering a message for a reason. Now, once you're up there, own it. The best part of the speech is at the end. No matter who your audience is, they'll give you a round of applause. And that's the best sound in the world. When you finish your speech, leave them with like a mic drop moment. After I finished my graduation speech, I marched right off the podium and confidently walked back to my seat because I made a point. Do something similar at the end of your speech. And there you have it. That is how to write and then present your own motivational speech. If you found it helpful, please leave a comment down below to let me know. And subscribe if you haven't already. Also, leave a comment down below if you have any questions or worries about public speaking, and I'll be happy to answer them in a future video. Until next time, this is Jack the Animal Tutorin, signing off.